So in this series of posts, I'm talking about failure to launch or delayed transition to adulthood. This is where a young person has aged out of adolescence but isn't really progressing to more or less independent adulthood. Usually they're living at home, they're not working or studying, they don't have many social contacts, and they just seem to be shrinking inward. And their parents are usually really worried. They can see that the door to adulthood it's right there. It's wide open. All their son or daughter needs to do is to walk through it. So they try to push. And the more they push, the more their son or daughter pushes back and stays right where they are. So that's the first big family dynamic that fouls things up, but there's more than one. And the second one that I want to focus on is the idea of overfunctioning and underfunctioning. And it has to do with helping the young person develop the skills and habits that they need in order to function as an adult. Now, the concept of over and underfunctioning comes mostly from marital therapy, but I think it's even more important in these kinds of parent-young adult relationships. The idea is that you have two people. Let's think about a couple that gets together, and we're thinking about some skill or other. Maybe it's the ability to cook. Now, those two people are practically never going to be at exactly the same level. One's going to be a little bit better than the other. So what happens? Well, they get together, and the one that's better thinks, look, cooking is just easier for me, and I get frustrated watching him make a mess. I'll do it. So this one does more and more of the cooking, and the other one does less and less. What happens? Well, the one who does more and more gets better and better and better at it, because practice helps. And the one who does less falls behind. So they might even get less functional than they were at the beginning. So now you've got a really great cook and a really lousy one. The lousy one feels even more inadequate in the kitchen, and the good one feels even more confident. So the tendency is for the great one to keep taking on more and more and more, and the lousy one gives up completely, even if the two of them were only a little bit different at the beginning of the relationship. Okay, think about another aspect, cleaning. One of them is a little bit neater than the other. So they clean up before the other one notices that things have gotten messy. And over time, they wind up taking on more of the cleaning duties, and the other one takes on less and less and less. Now, at some level, this sounds sensible. Play to your strengths. But in practice, what it often means is that one partner gets more and more incompetent at that skill, and the other one takes on the entire task. And eventually, the overfunctioning partner begins to feel resentful of the underfunctioning one. Now, in a marriage, it can be okay, because maybe one overfunctions at cooking and the other at cleaning. Overall, things might balance out. But now let's think about parents of late teenagers or young adults. Chances are the parents are better than the teen at most of the skills of adulthood. They've just had more practice. So the parent is a better cook and can do laundry easier. They know how to vacuum properly. They can do minor household repairs. They're a better driver. They know how to handle the garden. You name it. So there's an imbalance between the parent and the young adult. Now notice I'm not saying parent and child. There is no child. A 20-year-old is not a child. And I'm always trying to get parents to stop thinking of them as a child. This is an adult. So let's take cooking. The parent knows how to do it, and chances are they're busy. They got things to do. So they just want to get dinner made and done, not waste time. The young adult, not so great at it. They're inefficient, they make a mess, they get stuck when they realize they're missing an ingredient, and there are occasional disasters. Plus, they're not as good at figuring out timing, so you never quite know when dinner might be. So if you're thinking about tonight, what's the easiest? If you're the parent, just do it. Make dinner. It'll be simpler. It'll taste good. It'll be on time. The kitchen won't be a disaster area, and you won't have to deal with a lot of whining and complaining. If your son does it, it'll probably mean just as much work for you, and you're not even sure how it's going to turn out. So just do it. Overfunction. But the result of all of this is that the son, we will imagine it's the son, is underfunctioning. There's two people in this house, and one of them is making all the dinners, and the other one is making none of the dinners. And often the parent is working full time, and the young adult isn't. Now, technically, you might think it's reasonable that if one person is contributing by spending 8 hours a day making the money, the other will do more of the household stuff. Not an equal amount, more. But in these families, usually the parents have full working lives, and then they come home and do more than an equal share of the home stuff. And the parent is wondering, when is this ever going to change? Well, the answer to that, thankfully, is really clear. Yeah, never. Never. It's never going to change. The one who has been underfunctioning is not getting any better at cooking. How could he? He's not getting any practice. Plus, he's being rewarded, not for cooking, but for not cooking. When he doesn't help, the job is done for him. That's a reward. Oh, every time he doesn't cook, I give him a prize. So why isn't he cooking? Guess. These situations do not change until one thing happens. The person who is overfunctioning has to function less. Now, you thought I was going to say they have to stop. But no, they don't have to stop. They just have to slow down. They have to function at the level that would be fair if people were all functioning equally. So the idea is to stop nagging the young adult about helping out. It's about not filling in when they underfunction. Now, this can create a gap that changes the reward system. If I do my part, I have clean clothes. I have dinner made. Parents often underestimate how much the young adult would be willing to do. You know, they're simmering with resentment, these parents. When I ask, what would your son think is reasonable? They often say, oh, he thinks I should do everything. Thinks he shouldn't have to do it all, like anything at all. But when they actually get together in a family meeting, that very seldom happens. The young adult is usually willing to take on some duties. Sometimes not a completely equal share, mind you, but definitely more than nothing. But there's a problem. Often the parents have been training their young adult to be incompetent. They don't know how to cook. How would they? They've never done it. So initially, this usually means more work on the part of the parent. They're going to have to get involved. What would you like to make? What would you need? Let's get it on the grocery list. Here, I'll show you what sautéing means. And you have to learn to shut the hell up and smile when they make something, even if it's not as good as you would have made. In the short term, it's more work. Now, we've been talking about cooking, but similar dynamics happen in other areas. Tidying, cleaning, laundry, yard work, grocery shopping, getting grandma to her appointments, contributing in all the ways that it takes to keep a household going, and more. I see 30-year-olds who are being woken up by mom. 10-year-olds sometimes need to be woken up. 30-year-olds do not. Parents are doing all the bill payments and all the banking. Parents are driving their son to his job. Parents are policing bedtime. There's an obvious objection to all of this. We can agree all we like to what everybody's role is. Or we can say, stuff it, I'm not doing this anymore. But that doesn't mean he's going to magically start. If I don't vacuum the living room, it's not like she's going to suddenly develop this interest in vacuuming. It's just not going to happen. She doesn't see the need for it anyway. And this is a real concern. It has to be carefully planned out, and it has to be strategic. So this video is not the whole story, but part of the way forward is for the people who are overfunctioning to pull back. In effect, we want them to do less parenting because we parent when we have a child. And in these situations, there is no child in the house. It's hard sometimes to face. You liked being a parent. You liked having a child. But you don't have a child anymore. There are no children in this house. And there never will be again. The only people here are adults. And they need to be treated as adults with the expectations of adults.